hopefully this is one of the ones she can drop in on us. But I do not remember. If not, we'll just try to hack it on our own. How's everyone doing this morning?
Good.
Good.
Amazing.
And I just wanted to pop in real quick and say good morning. I've got to get on another phone call and then prep for this big meeting with St. Michelle at 10 a.m. But just wanted to say hello again and thank you guys for doing this. I know it's hard. And
Are you meeting with Ian? Or are you meeting with them so you can buy Stag Sleep Wine Cellars for $1 billion?
Well, I got to dig in the couch cushions first and just make sure I have all of it. But yes, that is the plan.
Yeah, so I was on that Trinchero meeting with you, Ian. Is that your standard? Is that this next few weeks just supplier meetings?
Yeah, there are more of them right now because, end of one year, beginning of another. But it does seem to be like there's just a lot of meetings all the time because then they want to do quarterly reviews and then you're having meetings with them about MBO stuff and
right.
And yeah, it's
nonstop thrill ride, right?
Huh?
A nonstop thrill ride, as they say.
That's right. I'm very.
It's almost as fun as being out on the street.
Yeah.
In the rain.
In the rain. It's a beautiful day. Beautiful day. How is it in Savannah, Danny? Are you you having to drive today?
I am, but we're waiting to drop off the old kids right now. But it's gorgeous, man. It's like 60 something here. Sun's out.
Don't rub it in.
75 today.
I'm going to do this course from the car on my way down to Savannah. I think that's what we need to do.
I see the kids in the back seat, Danny.
All right, cool. Let's
nonstop thrill ride here also.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go ahead and get it going. Also, real quick, thank you, Tanya. Tanya's on vacation, so she's just, I think, just kind of listening in. But thank you for joining us. I see Steve. We got him at his home office this time, which is awesome. You had to take off a little bit earlier last week, but that's why we record these things. So here we are at session number 2 of many. I'm not going to go back over this. I just like to keep this kind of top of mind. We'll keep this slide number 3 for the duration of our time. Just remember 55%. That's all we need, baby. All right, let's go over some scores real quick. We got Fergalicious in first place with 20 points. And then Danny from Savannah, Prison Break Spirio, and Daniel R. Skalak in second with 16. Ship it, baby. In third place, we've got a tie for fourth with Schmidt and Tanya. And then Steve, we're not holding you to this 3 because I know you had to take off a little bit earlier last week. All can be made up in moments, right? With a Kahoot quiz, which, oh, hold on. I thought it was my next slide. I got to remind you guys of the stakes first. The personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut. Or I believe we decided on a chicken wing Riesling party at my uncle's house. We're not even going to tell him. I think we're just going to go and just do it.
Make sure he's out of town.
Yeah, exactly. Is that a cellar unlocked though? All right, cool.
Doesn't he have a standard, like a standard tea time every Friday at like 1 o'clock?
Friday. Come on, Eric.
No. Just kidding.
Thursday.
Take a joke.
No offense taken here. All right, let's do a Kahoot. I've changed it to 20 seconds to hopefully be a little more manageable. I'm going to read the first one. Y'all tell me if you'd rather me not read them.
Oh, shoot.
It doesn't matter. I can't remember how to get into Kahoots.
It's fine. Go to kahoot.it.
I got that.
Hold on a second.
Not com.com. You got to do .it.
Right.
Okay.
And what are we keying in? The game pin is that number?
Yep, which is 624-4798.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, Kahoot IT. Play Kahoot.
Boris is in.
Yep, I've got it.
Danny is in. Ian, feel free to join if you're feeling crazy. Live from Florida, it's Tanya.
I'm not going to call in, right? Or I'm not going to jump into the Kahoot, but this is one of my favorite parts. I do like seeing the questions and then like sort of testing myself to see if I know them or not. So.
Right.
Okay, am I in?
You were a second ago. What happened? Yeah, there you are. Fergalicious,
Okay.
Franz, Steele, Schmitty. I think it's Tanya live from Florida on Central Time, by the way. So 7:06 a.m. Thank you for
Oh,
joining.
wow.
Ooh.
Jeez.
You're dedicated, Tanya.
Hopefully
Dedicated.
she's got a Bloody Mary.
That's how I retain things, but it's associative learning. So then you have to drink a Bloody Mary before the test.
Every
All right.
one you get right, you do a shot.
All right, let's do this thing. I'm going to read the first one. Y'all tell me to shut up if you don't want the questions read. And we got 20 seconds, so a little more time here. Question number 1 of 10. Which one of the following operations can be used to prevent the formation of tartrate crystals after bottling? Is it fining, chilling, surface filtration, or sulfur dioxide? Okay, cool. Yeah, it is chilling. What do you guys want me to read them or no?
It doesn't matter.
I was on the app before on the when we did it last week, and I'm on the web, and so I'm going back from screen to screen, and so
That's gotta be
I
tough.
have to listen to you read the question
Oh, perfect.
because I'm not on the screen that the Zoom is on because I'm on another screen.
That's
I don't
fine.
have
I
one of
like
those-
reading the
I
question.
don't have one of those 48-inch screens like all the guys do in the office, like dual screens next to each other. So I'm going back and forth on my little 13-inch laptop screen here.
I
Is
did
that
just.
overcompensating, Eric?
Yeah. Oh, hey.
All right, 1 point to Tanya.
Aren't you on vacation?
First blood. The first point of the day goes to team Harding ain't got nothing on this Tanya. All right, question 2. Which of the following wine styles would be deliberately oxidized in partially filled oak? Which one? Would it be New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, Burgundian Pinot Noir, Oloroso Sherry, or Washington State Riesling? Deliberately oxidized in partially filled oak. Ooh, y'all all nailed it, right? Sherry. Oloroso Sherry. O for oxygen. O, oxygen. Remember that. That's how you remember it. The big O, as they say on the streets, the big O. All right. Fergalicious still on top, but Birch is right behind. And then Tanya in third. Question 3. What is the name of the most important winemaking yeast? Is it Brettanomyces, ambient yeast, Saccharomyces vinous, or Saccharomyces cerevisiae?
You just love saying that.
Pretty sure I pronounced it incorrectly, but just own it, right?
Hey, it doesn't matter.
Fake it till you make
It's
it.
all Latin.
All right,
I
nice.
guessed on that one.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive because it looks like cerveza, right? But it's brewer's yeast, I think, right? It's beer yeast.
Yeah.
We use. 20 seconds seems a little bit more manageable too, huh?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll keep it this way. All right, question 4. Which of the following is not a way to create sweet wines? Not chaptalization, the addition of Seuss Reserve, drying grapes post-harvest, or freeze the grapes on the wine. Vine. Damn it, sorry, it's supposed to say vine. This is a toughie.
Ugh.
Okay, yeah, this would trip me up last time. I remember a bunch. The difference between chaptalization and Seuss Reserve. We'll get into that today. But chaptalization, remember, you're trying to increase the ABV, so you're adding sugar before, right? Could not fool Birch though, or Danny. So let's move on to question 5.
That's
Which
weird.
one of the
I
following
answered
will guarantee microbiological stability in a wine? Sterile filtration, racking, fining, or cool fermentation? Guarantee microbiological stability. I stole this question. I would not have known the answer necessarily to this question, but you guys did. It's sterile filtration. It's more, to me, this one's more like, well, it's not these other ones, right? Racking doesn't make anything microbiologically stable, fining or cool fermentation.
Hey, Connor, real quick question. Does everybody get the same amount of points for the right answer, or do you get more points if you answer first, second, or third?
Yeah, it's time sensitive. So if you
Okay, gotcha.
would immediately, then you would get more points. I should have mentioned that. Yeah. Danny's on a hot streak and now is in first place, but Fergalicious is right behind, followed by Birch. 4 more here. Which pair of regions has an established reputation for Riesling? Is it Barossa Valley and Coonawarra, Eden Valley, Clare Valley, Heathcote and Murray-Darling, or Adelaide and McLaren Vale?
Damn, that's tough.
Yeah, damn Australia. Yeah, it's Eden Valley and Clare Valley. This is a tough one because,
Yeah, that was hard.
because Adelaide and McLaren Vale, I mean, they all make Riesling, but Eden Valley, Clare Valley, at least in the eyes of actually CSW too, they're always mentioned together for Australian Riesling. All right, Danny's still on top. Ooh, getting close up there. Question 7. 225 liter barriques have blank oxidative effect than larger oak vessels. A greater, a lesser, an equal, or a negative? So your standard barrique has what oxidative effect compared to larger oak? All right.
Yeah.
Greater, right? Smaller the barrel, more surface area. All right, couple more here. A wine from a warmer climate would most likely be what? Enriched, chaptalized, acidified, or deacidified? This is a perfect WSET question because it's like you got to apply 3 things to get, to know the answer, right?
I'm terrible at this.
It's all good. Acidified, right? So warmer climate usually going to have higher sugar, lower acid, right?
That.
So you would maybe acidify, like we do sometimes in the Central Valley when we're drinking our Woodbridge, whatever, Pinot Grigio or whatever.
Say it's
All
not
right.
so.
As we all do. Couple more here. Why would a winemaker ferment a premium Pinot Noir at a warmer temperature than other reds? To maximize color, flavor, and tannin, to promote fresh fruit flavor, to add acidity, or to encourage the development of toast and spice character? Nice, 6 for 6. Yeah, to maximize color, flavor, and tannin. More heat, more color. Need something to rhyme there. Y'all help me out there. More heat, more. We'll get back to that one. One more question to go. Question 10. Fix that in post. Blank is an intercellular fermentation that takes place inside the grape berry in response to an anaerobic environment. Malolactic fermentation, carbonic maceration, alcoholic fermentation, or pasito method. Intercellular fermentation. Add more heat, get more flavor on your feet. Yes, carbonic maceration. Well done. 6 for 6. All right. Let's see the old podium here. In third place with 3 points, we've got live from Florida. It's Tanya Lawson. Well done. Fergalicious with 7. And the silver and the gold medal goes to Anna Carr, no less. Danny from Savannah. Let me go ahead and screenshot. You guys smile for it. Steve and Eric are like, nope. That's all right. All right, what'd you guys think of that one?
Good.
Yeah, right.
Better than last week.
My hands are sweating. I thought Fergie was going to catch me.
I thought I got the Seuss Reserve correct, and it said I didn't. So hell if I know.
Right. We'll cover all that here shortly.
I'm sure you are correct, Michael, that WSET will get back to us and say that they had to redo that answer. So
Yeah, they had to re-cahoot me.
yeah.
Did you spell it the British way, Seuss Reserve or something?
Right.
The German way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Connor, how many chapters are we doing here today?
we're doing 7 through 11.
Okay.
What I realized is chapters 10 and 11 are bull honky.
Yes, they are.
I mean, which is nice. I think next 2 weeks from now is going to be a lot more in depth than chapter 10, factors
Right.
that affect the cost of wine, which I stole from my Wine 101 slide PowerPoint, full disclosure. And then chapter 11, I don't even think I really read because it was just talking about PDOs and PGI. So we'll just talk about that for a second. Hey, so Danny, are you still driving?
Yes, I got about 15 more minutes.
Okay. Do you guys mind if we wait to do the short answer until Danny's at a desk?
Not at all.
Okay,
Awesome.
well-
Thanks, guys.
Cool. All right. Yeah, we'll come back whenever. Just let us know. And there's probably going to be a stopping point between one of the chapters or something, and then we'll get into these short answer cues. Okay. Ugh, I don't have my training wheels today without Molly. We'll have to push through here. So I only added this little slide here because it's in the book, and I found this from the WSET too. I don't think we needed to really. A lot of what we're doing today will just be review for you guys. But we'll kind of dig in places where I think things aren't as intuitive or we might not know. We know, for example, parts of a grape, colors, tannins, and flavors with the U come from the skin. Tannins come from seeds and stems often. So we want to be careful not to crush the seeds to release those extra tannins, right? And the pulp has water, sugar, acids, and flavors. Okay, and as y'all will recall, I'm doing my little question and answer thing. And we're gonna start with, okay, let's see here.
Hey, Connor, is there a precise page in the book that we're on right now? WSET manual, or are you just kind of going?
It would
on
be
your
chapter
thing?
7, which, hold on. Is anyone looking at the book? I don't have the,
Oh, it's also
Yeah.
chapter 7 in the book, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
gotcha.
sorry, yeah, so it's
Page
chapter 7.
43.
Thank you.
I'm just following just following the book.
Got it. I'm on it.
Cool. So let's talk about, and the way the book frames this is we talk about oxygen first and how it is throughout all the different winemaking processes, right? So let's talk about it. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's a negative thing, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So in wine making, I'm gonna start with you, Eric. If I want to make a wine that's dominated by primary aromas, is oxygen my friend?
By primary aromas.
Primary being fruity, right? Stuff from the grape.
Right.
Do we like oxygen in this environment when we're trying to make a fruity wine?
No.
No, I would say no.
Yep, that is correct. That's a no. Tanya
Tanya,
with a
don't
steal
jump
down
ahead.
Good answer.
She wants to go back to bed.
there.
Tanya,
Tanya, don't
put
worry,
that
you are
Weatherby
next.
down.
You are next, Tanya. Yeah, so aromatic grapes, if we're trying to make, like a Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling, something very aromatic, we often will want, especially when we're talking about the cheapies, which we'll talk about a little bit, we want to make something fresh, fruity. Oxygen is our enemy, right? And then the book goes on about how you can also pick at night when it's cooler. The cooler temperatures will help protect those flavors and aromas and create an anaerobic environment.
Ooh.
Okay. What about in maturation? So Tanya, when would I maybe want to use an anaerobic? When would you want to choose an aerobic environment in maturation, and what would you use?
Oh, sure. I get that question.
So if you're, how would you add a little bit of oxygen in the winemaking process is the other way to say that. Without saying
You could put it in barrel.
Yes, thank you. So
See,
weirdly worded.
ask the question like that. I got it.
Yeah. Oxygen good and barrel, right? If you want some oxygen to add some interesting flavors, you can use oak and wood. We use that often with Chardonnay when we're talking white wines, right? Especially if we talk neutral grapes. We're talking neutral grapes in white wines. You might want to zhuzh them up a little bit, make them more interesting. That's when oxygen could be your friend, right? Okay, Fergalicious, if my barrel is smaller, is the aerobic impact greater or less than a larger barrel?
Sure. Surface cut.
Correct. Yeah. Everyone understands that principle, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yep, just more surface area, right? Okay. Let's talk about SO2. They spend a good amount of time on it. So it's pretty.
I don't actually understand the difference between anaerobic and aerobic. Can you just talk about those words?
Sure. So aerobic, just think of that as oxygen. That's like a synonym, right? Aerobic means an aerobic. God, it's so annoying to say anaerobic, but the aerobic environment is one full of oxygen, right? So that's oak aging, or anytime else you would use oxygen, oxygen would touch the wine. Whereas anaerobic is, think stainless steel, right? Just think we're trying to, in SO2, we're trying to keep all the oxygen away.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So speaking of SO2, it's almost indispensable. There's probably a couple natty producers who would tell you otherwise, but SO2, the whole trick basically is you keep the amount of SO2 as low as possible, so it's not going to corrupt flavors and aromas, but you also don't want, but enough so you're killing other yeast, bacterias. It's an antiseptic and an antioxidant, right?
Yep.
So really important. I remember in Quinta Sardonia, I was helping Christian with his harvest, and he's biodynamic. He doesn't like to use sulfur, so he'd use dry ice and stuff, and we were crushing, destemming, or doing all the stuff. But then at the very end, he said right before he bottles it, he puts a little of SO2 in there, because he's like, I just don't want spoiled wine once we send it to the US. And I'm like, yes, you get it. You need a tiny bit, like just use it when you have to, because otherwise he would be a natural wine producer, right? Damn natties. All right, let's talk about some common elements in winemaking, AKA winery vessels. We just said oak will add a small amount of oxygen while the wine matures. Birch, what else will oak add in terms of structure and flavors to a wine?
In terms of flavors, typically baking spice, vanilla. If it's American oak, it could be a more dill component.
Beautiful.
Looking for.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for, but also structure too.
Typically, it would give you some more complexity, even some in the red wines, maybe a little more tannin.
Yes, that's the thing. Tannin, body. Yeah, perfect. Yep. I gave you 2 points for that because it was 2 questions.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Boris is falling behind here.
Class is getting heavy. Adds tannins, aromas, and flavors. Exactly what we were talking. Vanilla, baking spices, dill for American oak is great. And then size, production, and age matters. So Harville, why would a winemaker want to use a barrel on its fourth go round, its fourth usage? Why would they pick a used barrel?
I do remember this one. To impart less of structure and all those things that you'd be looking for in a bigger wine.
Exactly. So that's a good example, I think, of a WSET style question. We all know the fourth time you use a barrel, it's not imparting anything, but they want you to go, why? Why? Okay, why is a winemaker going to use that? Well, because it influences and instructs the style of the wine, right? They don't want heavy aromas of vanilla and baking spice. You might get a little bit. You're going to get a little bit of oxidation still, right? Because the oxygen still goes through, but you're not going to get all that other, and a lot of tannin too. Okay, inert vessels. Stainless steel is the big one to know. Concrete is, well, you see a lot more of these eggs recently, but that was also the way to go before, with an epoxy resin. Don't know what that is, but I wrote it down. Sounds cool. Any questions thus far, anything?
We're good.
Like I said, a lot of this is kind of review, I feel, today, because we know a lot of this stuff. Okay, like this slide, we don't need to spend much time on it. We all know that you can use staves or chips. staves being like bags of tea, kind of oat tea bags you stick in there, and chips you literally just throw in there and then filter out later. Okay. I don't have a picture for this. I'm kind of embarrassed, but fix that. Fergie just leaves. So let's talk grape processing because the book talks about it. And I'm going to ask Prison Break's very own Daniel R. Skalak, do machine harvested grapes arrive with their skins on or stems on? Sorry, or do they not?
They do
No.
According to the book, they do not.
not.
I actually didn't read. They do. Sorry, I didn't let you finish. Do not. According to the book, I didn't realize that actually, that machine harvested grapes, according to the book, are just berries.
I didn't know that either.
Because they
I
go,
did read that.
the machine goes through and shakes them and they just
Right.
come off. So
Yeah.
I
It
just
still
think
is-
when you're hand harvesting, you got your little clipper, so you're just clipping and it's still got a thing on it.
right. I just thought you would still get some stems or something. I never really thought
Yeah,
about
I would-
that.
I would think you would get some too.
Okay.
Yeah,
shake 'em
Schmidt.
so
that would be
hard.
part of the, what is it, MOG? Like you're getting
Better
that
other
extra
than
stuff,
grapes,
I guess,
yeah.
so.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I forgot about MOG.
I'm sure you do still get that, but that's not what most of it is.
Big MOG fan. Okay, let's talk about pressing for a minute. And I got a question for Eric. What is the free run juice?
The juice that just naturally goes to the naturally, like gravitationally goes to the bottom.
Yeah, exactly right. It's whether it's the weight of the grapes that will burst some of the grapes and grapes on top of them. It is the primo, right? We call
As
it
opposed to being pressed, where you have to actually squeeze or
right.
brush,
It's-
I guess.
The juice that just kind of
Or press.
naturally flows out once you put it in the press, I believe is a good way to say it. I think.
Right.
Molly would probably go deeper into that. But yeah, winemakers will often put that aside, right, as the best. Which speaking of, so Tanya, why might I separate juices from the beginning of press versus the end of press?
That would be if you're going to do the Saignée method, perhaps for making some rosé.
Ooh, yeah. I love it, but I'm actually getting at just a little, but that's totally right.
Love
But
it,
you can
but you're
also
wrong.
just, for making anything.
I figured
think-
that's why you were asking, because we talked about that.
Yeah,
few months
no,
ago.
I love it. That's also true, but I think at least the book talks about how we do that for a lot of different wines anyway, where a winemaker might separate kind of the beginning of the press versus the end.
The press fractions.
Press fractions. Yeah.
The juice is more concentrated at the beginning.
Yeah, and it's
You're
more
getting more flavor.
you're gonna get
More
more
tannin in the
tannin
end.
and
The
stuff
last,
towards the end.
Yeah.
yeah.
More color and tannin at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're pressing a little bit harder, maybe. I don't know if you're pressing
Right.
harder actually.
Blend
but it's just-
according to flavor profile.
Yep. All right, good stuff. We'll get more into some of this here in a minute once we go into white winemaking and red. Okay, I talk about the whole sugar acid balance here. If it's out of balance, you can adjust things. You can adjust that must, right? You got to adjust the must. Now you can do that before, during, or after fermentation. So now let me ask, I think we're on Fergie. What is RCGM? That'd be a hard one.
Rectified concentrated grape must.
Well done.
I know.
You've been waiting on that answer, haven't you, Michael?
Dude,
No,
it was
I
actually
just-
highlighted in my book.
every time I read that, my eye twitches. And I
He's
go,
got-
oh my God, not again, not RCMG again.
Yeah.
You don't have RCGM tattooed on your chest like Thug
I don't know
Life?
who uses that technique.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Molly is with us now, so maybe she could enlighten us a bit. But yes, so exactly, RCGM, and it's kind of like chaptalization, right? It's a good way to remember it, but it's increasing sugar and you're doing it before. And then what's the difference between that? Molly, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. Sorry.
I got a tough one for Birch. What's the difference between chaptalization and RCGM?
So chaptalization is only used to final alcohol content, and it's only used prior to the alcoholic fermentation. RCGM is normally used to sweeten the wine at the end, so post-alcoholic fermentation.
Oh, okay. I thought it was before as well. I was confused.
I think you can use it for chaptalization as well, but it is basically like making orange juice from concentrate.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So I was going to say the big difference was, and I've been saying chap. So chaptalization is more sugar beet sugar, whereas the RCGM is
Grape must.
comes from grapes, right?
Well, yeah, they both come from grapes. I mean, grape. Well, yeah, grapes. Sorry. Chaptalization, yeah, normally would be cane sugar or beet sugar of some type, but you could use normally the sweetened grape juice is used at the end. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
But I suppose you could use it beforehand if you wanted to. I've never heard of anybody doing that, but
So would that be part of the Seuss Reserve then, is usually using RCGM?
Swiss Reserve is more governed than RCGM. Swiss Reserve has to be fresh grape juice harvested at the same time as
Okay.
Okay.
question and at the same ripeness level, and I think also disclosed to the government that you're going to be doing this. So, yeah, that's Germany. What do you?
Yeah.
Is that pretty much a German thing?
Well, Swiss Reserve is German, yes. But that practice is used widely. I mean, in other places, the lower quality way to do it is with the RCGM.
Gotcha.
Lower quality. That's good to know too.
In general, lower quality, yeah, with the reconstituted concentrated grape must.
Beautiful. Welcome back.
Like an
Thank
orange
you.
juice.
Thank you for joining us, Molly.
Oh, you're welcome.
I love it. All right. Yeah. So like we were saying, we can adjust that must. We can do it before, during, or after, right? You got to adjust your must. Birch, where might I do this? Where might I adjust the must before chaptalization, etc.? What type of climate, I should say, sorry.
Okay, thank you for that. Maybe either in a cooler climate where you're trying to maybe lower the acidity, or in a warmer climate it's low in the fruit.
Yeah, so I think the main thing that they're going to look for is a colder, cool climate, because you're usually going to have, it's not going to be as ripe. So you want more sugar for alcohol, basically.
Yeah.
Right. So at least chaptalization, just associate it with Germany in your head, so you know cold climate.
Right.
Even though I'm sure they do it other places. I just like to put it in my little Germany compartment.
Champagne.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, that would.
Routinely practiced in Champagne.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. All right, covered those two, and then acidification. Harv, where might I acidify? Name a region I might, I'm taking a next step. Where might I need to add some acid? Which would normally happen after, I think, right, Molly?
Before.
Oh, before?
And
Okay,
then
before fermentation.
and after. They do it both.
Would
Okay.
that be in a warmer climate?
Ding, 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 yeah. And so it just name like a hot climate like southern Spain, they might acidify perhaps. I think we do it in the Central Valley in California sometimes.
Yeah, we do it pretty routinely.
Okay. I like it.
Where we
Right,
need to.
point to Harv. And then deacidification would be probably the opposite. I'm guessing that would be really, far north. I think Germany again. I don't know where, this is another Molly question. I don't know where they do it a lot, but.
And how would
Yeah,
they do that?
Yeah, I don't know if they've ever really done it in the Finger Lakes, but certainly those
Good.
areas, colder vintages, yeah.
Cool. All right. Now let's talk about some fermentations here. Okay. So alcoholic fermentation, we all know about that. Yeast eating sugar to make alcohol and CO2. But the main reason we talk about it in this chapter is there's a lot of choices here, or this is a powerful choice if you're a winemaker, right? So you can just let wild yeast do their thing, or you can use which one did we talk about in the Kahoot? The Saccharomyces, which one?
Cerevisiae.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you could use that one that you know is a surefire yeast, classic yeast, top 3 yeast for me. And then temperature is another thing that could affect, right, the fermentation. So I've got a question for Danny. If I'm trying to preserve the floral aromas and flavors, those some of those primary aromas, but especially florals, would I ferment at a higher temperature or a lower temperature?
A cooler temperature.
Yes, cooler temp. Preserve those flowers. Higher temps are better extraction, right? So usually for red wines, what range are we in when we're talking between lower and higher fermentation temps? Anyone?
20 and 32 Celsius.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was just looking for higher temps, but I'll give you an extra point for that. Yeah, exactly. So higher temps because they extract better extraction. Okay, let's see. Blending, always available to you for balance, consistency, and style. Oh, I think we might have Danny at a desk now. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm trying to come in here.
Cool. I think after chapter 7, we'll go back to the questions. Does that sound good to everybody?
Sure.
All right. Cool. Let's talk about this. I stole from the WSET 2, so we might need to go a little bit deeper into it, but the slide was ready, so I stuck it in here. Malolactic conversion, the art is formerly known as malolactic fermentation. We don't call it fermentation anymore, right? Because it's a bacteria. But the big thing to remember here is it lowers acidity. And what other things will it, Eric, what other things will it give me? Like what aromas and flavors will mallow add to a wine?
Well, it'll give you a creamier texture on the wine.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. And then what does anyone want to name another aroma that would come off of something with mallow?
Oh, like pear.
Butter.
Yeah,
Butter.
Butter.
Diacetyl.
right?
I don't know.
Butter,
Can
and
you
then
smell
cream.
butter?
The pear is usually probably from Chardonnay, just primary flavors, I'm thinking, but
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
but butter and cream, right? Now, Tanya, would I usually want to use malolactic conversion on an aromatic variety in general?
Oh, no.
Usually not. I know we do it for Sauvignon Blanc sometimes. We'll talk about that a little bit later today. But usually not. We usually want to preserve those florals and primary aromas. Okay, let's talk about lees for a little bit. I think we all know what lees are. And if you age a lot wines sur lees, it's on the lees, more body. You get these biscuit and bready type of notes.
That's what that photograph is.
Yeah. Starring the lees, right?
Mhm.
Okay, let's see.
Who knows what that thingy's called?
God, I've actually used one of those before, and I
A
can't remember.
batonnage.
That actual
Nailed it.
thing.
Yeah, but Fergie just said batonnage, right? The baton, right?
Yeah, I think it's called a Duden or something like that.
Huh.
Oh, the old Duden.
Yeah.
I didn't know they still use those dudens.
It's a doohickey.
Yeah. We call it the dude for short.
The dude for
Dude.
short. The dude abides.
Yeah.
But yeah, batonnage, right?
Batonnage.
Batonnage. All right. Sorry for that French accent.
Don't ever do that again, please.
Batonnage. Moving right along. Let's talk about clarification. Clarification is a little more boring. Maybe Molly finds it fascinating, like the vine stuff.
Clarification? Yeah, it's just
Clarification.
making
No
the juice
breathing.
clear.
Actually, I want to ask somebody real quick. This is a good little question here. I think I'm on Fergie. What are the difference between gross leaves and fine leaves?
Well, gross leaves you want to remove because they're not called gross for no reason.
Well said.
Word.
It can be a little bit chunky, and the fine leaves actually add texture and flavor. And per your photograph, if you do a little batonnage or put the dude on them, you're going to get more concentration. So it's another way to extract more flavor and body than just using oak.
Oh, I love it.
And of course, a lot of wines like Muscadet serve it out. Leave it on the lees because obviously they're seeing no oak, or if they do, it's large passive oak. So that's where they're getting their body from.
Well said, Fergie.
And how did you not pass your essay question?
Mhm.
No doubt.
Like I said, they couldn't read my writing. I can't.
You spelled color COLOR, like we said, and you blew it. Well, yeah, no, well said. Another region we would use that in France, we went a little bit east of Loire, would be where with sparkling wines, right? Champagne. We're on the lees a lot there, right?
Limoux.
Whole lot of leaves.
Limoux, yep.
Limu.
All right, let's talk about clarification and try not to fall asleep. So we got sedimentation. And when we talk about sedimentation, I never put these in the little boxes like they do, but we're really talking about racking, right? That's the main way of doing it. And we'll get into that here next chapter a little bit. You'll rack and return. Adios, gross lees. Fine lees, we might keep you a little bit. We'll see. Can someone, and by someone I mean Birch, what is fining?
Fining could be either used with egg whites or clay bentonite, and as you drop it into the wine, it attaches itself to those little particles and falls to the bottom of the juice.
Yeah, well said. They're bindy boys, right? Things bind to them and they sink.
Yep.
And then you could rack off of that, right? You could rack.
Yes, pop over, rack, return, whatever you're doing.
Anything else we need to add, Molly, about fining?
I'm sorry?
Do we need to add anything about fining, you think?
Fining is more for protein stabilization as well for white wine, for making sure they don't turn cloudy later on.
Protein stabilization.
Yeah, filtration is to move like big shreds, the flotsam and jetsam, and then fining is to remove any sort of unstable proteins for the most part.
Gotcha. Okay.
Would chilling the must down do the same thing?
Well, that would be part of just clarification. So chilling it down in the cellar and then racking it off the gross lees then would be your first step. Yeah.
So the only way to get rid of the protein is by doing the fining.
Fining, yeah.
Okay.
And that's usually something else that's protein binding, which is usually bentonite or isinglass.
I got a quick question. What if you're tasting a fault in the wine that's a protein issue? What would that smell like?
Well, the wine would probably smell kind of funky, bad, and it might be cloudy as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually it would turn cloudy. Sometimes you have a wine that's cloudy that's still good because it's just unfiltered, unfined and unfiltered, but sometimes it is a protein problem.
I have a real stupid quick question. In the movie Bottle Shock with Chateau Montelena, when they had the dark color in the wine, was that a protein issue, a finding issue?
No, that was something called pinking, which I'd have to double check and see what that is again.
Okay.
That's something a little bit different.
Gotcha.
Pinking?
I want to say it was something that had to do with it being light struck, maybe.
Huh.
Sounds like something you do on the
Sounds
street.
weird.
Pinking.
Yeah, right?
Thanks. Cool. I'm gonna look up. For the big email. Which, by the way, you guys cool with the big email format, answering questions that way?
Sure.
Cool. Remember, points for firing back memes or articles, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Depth filtration to filter out. So I might lean on you a little bit here too, Molly, for depth
Okay, sure.
versus surface. I think my ADD kicked in as I was reading this, and I said, let me just lean on Molly during class. So what do we need to know about the differences between these two?
Yeah.
I know the book said something like, picture the surface filtration to be like a bunch of little holes like sieves at the top, right? That the wine goes through.
Yes.
And depth, I wrote thick boys when I did the PowerPoint. I'm not sure what I meant by that.
The big pieces.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just filtering out the.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm allergic to depth filtration.
Yeah. So did we cover that, or what else? What do you think we need to know for that, Molly? Or should we come back to that?
So surface filtration is like cross flow membrane. So that would be a really, really fine surface. And you can get down to super fine microns with some of those. We actually use a cross flow filtration with KJ Chardonnay, which gets it pretty clean. So that's a membrane filter. That's that surface filtration. And a lot of that is based on high concentration of something on one side and low concentration of the other, so it'll pull it out. But it's also just a small micron unit that'll go.
Small micron unit. Okay.
That's gonna be hard to remember.
Very tiny, so it can filter out things like yeasts.
Okay. So would you not
Bacteria.
use a depth filtration system for yeast and smaller stuff? Would you usually use a surface?
Usually surface, yeah.
Okay. All right. So when we're filtering out yeast, like when we're making Moscato d'Asti or Prosecco or something, and we need to remove the yeast, we would use a surface filtration
Yeah. Hopefully
system.
that, yeah, you would. And you
Okay.
would also probably do some cold sterile filtration. You might also do some cold sterile filtration
Okay.
just to make sure that you don't have any yeast left.
But the main thing for our purposes, if they were to ask us some sort of question, and it would probably be maybe a multiple choice, but this is a membrane. They're smaller, and it's more for getting yeast and smaller things out for the surface
Right.
filtration versus a depth.
Or for, yeah, big
Thick boys. All right.
boys.
All right, and then tartrate stability. We've talked about that a little bit, but basically, where was I? I think I'm on Danny. What do we do to maintain tartrate stability? What do we do something to the must, to the wine?
You chill it down to encourage it to develop tartrates and then filter it off of that somehow.
Yes, well said.
Cold stabilize.
Yep, cold
Would
stabilization.
that be a surface filtration to get rid of those tartaric crystals?
Mm-mm.
That's a Molly question. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Sorry,
I was
what's that?
I'm sorry, I should have said Molly.
Once you do your cold stabilization, tartrate stability, how then do you filter? What type of filtration system would get the crystals out?
Yeah, it probably would go through another depth filter.
Okay.
It would depend. That could be different from place to place, but those tartrates are usually fairly large, so you don't need
Okay.
something super small. Yeah.
Got it.
That's why people often think it's salt or glass or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So guys, that's
Okay.
the end of chapter 7. I think it'd be a good time because it's already about halfway through class. Do we need a quick 2-minute break and then we do the writing of something? Do we need a pee break before we do the writing? No, let's do the writing for 6 minutes and then we'll take a quick break. Does that sound good? And then we'll get into the other two. So 1 second here.
And this is essay, what we're doing?
Correct. And Birch, thanks again for sharing that document from a couple years. I did one from that, and then one from, I got something from Lisette at Vino Venue that I will share with you guys, but I'm pulling some of the questions from that. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys 6 minutes. Does that sound good?
And are we typing this in and emailing this to you, or what are we doing?
If you want to, that's great.
Or just writing it down on a sheet of paper and we're just gonna go over it?
Yeah, I was thinking y'all would do. We could do it either way if you want, but if you want the more like a class experience, like how it's gonna be on the exam, go ahead and write it out for 6 minutes. And these questions are not gonna be exactly, they're close, but do that. You'll have a lot more time on the exam. And then if you want to, if you wanted to type it up or then scan or take a picture and send it to Molly and I'd be happy to look at it. But we're also going to just talk about each one
Okay.
afterward.
Connor, can you send these questions out separately?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
They're always on, oh, you mean just like on their own altogether?
like when we do one, so if we want to write it out, like we've got it,
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because aren't you want us to do one or the other while we're doing this, and then
Yeah,
talk about it?
absolutely. And I can send out these and then they're good, examples of a good answer. Would that be helpful? Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sure.
definitely.
okay, because the stuff that Lisette sent me has an example answer. This first one here, I'll just go ahead and get to group A. I don't have answers for, but we can figure that out. We're going to talk about it together and try to get to the bottom of it. So either answer group A or group B. And I'll put a 6-minute timer on there.
All 5 questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the 2 down here. And I'll go ahead and time it up and then we'll talk about it. On your mark, get set, go. And I'm going to mute.
Oh, me.
Halfway mark, 3 minutes lit. 30-second warning. All right. Time's up and we are back. Why did I just turn into a game show host? Not really sure, but let's talk about these short answers. Who did Group A? Who was Group A? Bergie, Birch. All right, a lot of you. Anybody do Group B?
I did.
Okay, cool. Beautiful. Let's talk about the answers to questions from Group A. So Pinot Noir, name 3 premium New World regions in 3 different countries. Someone just spit them out.
Carneros,
Beautiful.
Santiago, Yarra Valley.
Beautiful.
Tasmania.
Great. Anyone have a South African one?
Isn't that Walker Bay?
I was gonna say Walker Bay is one,
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
What about Marlboro? Does that count as premium?
Yeah.
That's what I put, Marlboro.
Yep.
Cool.
What about Chile? If we're talking Chile, we can do, what can we talk about for Pinot?
Casablanca.
Casablanca, yeah. There's several more.
Tata.
Tata.
The
All the-
Tata Valley.
All the gentlemen snicker in the class.
Would Mali would be considered as a cooler region? I know it's further south. It's cooler.
Where's this? Itata? Oh, the Maule?
Mali.
Maule is a little warm for Pinot. We usually go a little further south to Itata, Biobío,
Gotcha.
Vallejo. Yeah.
But I would think Santa Maria Valley, Mendocino Ridge. There's lots of places.
Tons
Yeah.
of California, right?
Yeah, tons.
Monterey, you can almost say, maybe, I don't know.
Monterey.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's kind of the easy one there, and then we'll get a little bit tougher. Explain carbonic maceration. We'll talk about this here in a minute when we get into chapter 9, but briefly.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
In the English format, when we're answering a quick question like one, do we want to just put it in any type of a format or just name the 3 regions and be done with it?
Like, do you mean do we need to
Explain
put
why
it in
we're
a
picking the
sentence?
region?
That's a good question. So Molly, could we just write out Carneros, whatever, Marlborough and Central Otago, or do we need to say Marlborough is a great one in New Zealand and like a sentence? Is that what you mean, Birch?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, the way this is written, it doesn't seem like it needed to be in full.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says name it. It doesn't say
Yeah.
anything else. So,
Give the differences or whatever. All right.
right.
I've got one too to kind of follow that up.
Sure.
If you're not sure, can you put 4 premium New World regions? Do you get points taken off for when you're wrong, or is it only if you're right?
No.
Good question.
They're only asking for 3. I would just make sure that you know that you have different countries. So like if you said Yarra Valley and Tasmania, those are both Australia. So
Yeah,
Right.
good point.
Don't put Willamette and Carneros.
right.
Good questions. Okay, so does someone want to explain carbonic maceration and the style? We can all kind of do it together because we're going to talk about semi-carbonic in a minute. And
Isn't it when I put when the juice is naturally extracted just from sitting, and the weight of the grapes pushes down on the gravity, just kind of makes the grapes kind of crush themselves?
yeah, I think that's part of it. I think the big phrase you're going to want to use for this one is intercellular fermentation, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
'Cause
fantastic.
carbonic is
I would have got a 0 on that one.
I
Yeah.
also put CO2
Yep.
added to the vats to fill up the top. And
Connor,
then,
what did you say? What?
Intercellular fermentation. So basically, and by the way, speaking of, Danny, to your question before, anaerobic environments, carbonic is the definite, like that's a great example of an anaerobic environment, right? because what'll happen is, so what happens is inside of each grape, when there's no oxygen, they will ferment up to, what is it, 2% ABV inside of the grape, and that causes them to split, right? And then it gets into what Eric's talking about, where they burst from that intercellular fermentation. And but with carbonic maceration, they'll actually blanket the top of the tank with CO2, right, to create that anaerobic environment. And so then all the grapes go through intercellular fermentation, right? And then we'll talk about semi-carbonic, which is kind of like a hybrid of that. Am I missing anything, Molly?
No, I mean, sometimes they'll call it, one thing to remember for carbonic, which is different than semi-carbonic, is the couve closed, so the closed container and complete covered by CO2.
So semi would be not closed, be open.
Not closed.
Got
And
it,
no
okay.
CO2, correct?
And whole cluster fermentation, yeah, would be just an open vat. So you would get
And you know what? That's what I think I was explaining, was whole cluster fermentation instead of
Yeah.
carbonic, because I didn't mention CO2. Whereas
Yeah,
whole
just
cluster
in-
fermentation is is when the grapes just kind of sit there, right?
Well, and whole cluster is when you're not in a closed container.
Okay,
So for truly carbonic, you would have to be in a sealed
gotcha.
tank.
And then
But carbonic,
carbonic,
Sorry?
semi-carbonic would be no CO2 and open,
Well, there is going to be some CO2 being produced already. So, I mean,
right?
CO2 is going to be produced with the natural alcoholic fermentation starts. So that does help to give it a little bit of a blanket. I mean, you're always going to have that in any type of fermentation. But for true carbonic fermentation, they would have it in a sealed tank so that CO2 wouldn't allow any natural fermentation to happen necessarily.
Got it.
Getting any alcoholic
Is semi
happening because you don't want any oxygen.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is the semi-carbonic closed or
No,
Semi-carbonic would normally be open.
Okay.
So then with a semi-carbonic, you would have a layer
I
of
see.
grapes on the top. You would have the grapes underneath getting squished, and juice would be coming out. So once you have yeasts on the skins of the grapes, and what you need to start an alcoholic fermentation is oxygen. So if you are in an oxygenless environment, then you can have a truly carbonic
I think what you were
maceration.
saying, Danny, is carbonic has to be closed. Semi can be either normally
Can be
open, but
open.
they-
And what's happening in the semi-carbonic is that the grapes on the top and that little layer would delay some of the alcoholic fermentation, but then it would start naturally once the grapes started bursting and the yeast started acting. You would start to get some alcoholic fermentation going on.
So carbonic
question.
man-made intervention of CO2, semi-carbonic, some of the CO2 that's happening already in some of the berries kind of below or above that they burst, and then some of that CO2 some of that kind of happens anyway.
Well, you start losing your CO2 blanket because you don't have anything to hold it in.
Okay,
You start getting some natural fermentation to happen.
but there is some intercellular fermentation going on in semi, even though it's not, and there's no man-made intervention. And then the other one would be just whole cluster. Some of them go through intercellular.
Right. So that's whole cluster is kind of the same as semi-carbonic a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have both things happening at once. But in a truly carbonic, you would be blocking any alcoholic fermentation from starting
Gotcha.
until you were ready. Because then eventually you'll have to go through a normal alcoholic fermentation.
I really want to sing semi-charm kind of life somehow with this. Every time I read this, I'm like, how can I make this into semi-charm kind of life? But can someone tell me semi-carb kind of life?
So Molly, one last question. The result typically for carbonic would be softer tannins, more fruit forward. Would that same end result be the same for semi-carbonic and whole cluster?
I mean, yeah. Well, whole cluster, don't forget you've got the inclusion of stems.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
And you might have that with semi-carbonic, but you might not. You might have some stem inclusion.
That's a good way to differentiate it, though. Think of stems for whole cluster. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Because Greg Brewer's wines, it's not shy on the tannin necessarily.
Yep, that is a good point.
And it does have more fruit forward nature to it. Whereas like a Beaujolais, you're not going to have as much stem inclusion because they're not, I mean, it would depend on the Beaujolais.
Right.
Nouveau or maybe just a straight Village probably wouldn't have as much stem, but you might get some stem inclusion in some of your crus. but they're also not going through truly carbonic. They might be going through semi-carbonic or whole cluster.
Perfect.
Because yeah, and then you're not only going to have carbonic maceration in Beaujolais, they use it quite a lot in the Southern Rhone, and they'll use it on different grape varieties in the blends.
So my next question was going to be, what's the style of wine? We covered a lot of that, right? Usually less tannic for just strictly carbonic. What are some flavors, you guys, that especially the book mentions? Flavors and aromas for
Banana,
banana, right?
Bubble gum.
Bubble gum, perfect.
fruit candied roll up.
Here we go. You need to think of some sort of British treat that no one else knows about.
Yes,
Treacle
that is a
top.
good point.
What about like cola or
I love that. That's what I always think of, like cherry cola. In the book, here's cherry cola.
Cherry
Cherry
cola
bar.
to me is more of a climate thing, especially,
Okay.
you know.
Russian River Valley cherry cola for me.
right? Okay, got it.
Okay, so let's list 4 methods of concentrating grapes and sugars. Do you want to get all 4? Or get 4? What'd you get, Fergie? What'd you get, Danny?
Noble rot, drying on the vine, freezing on the vine, drying after picking.
Beautiful.
Pretty much.
Yep. Yeah, well said. Okay, did we missing anything? I think that's the main things we cover in these chapters. What are the 3 main techniques a winemaker uses for clarification? So I think what they're looking for here is what we just went over, which is sedimentation, right? Which is
Okay,
racking,
Fining.
fining,
Filter.
filtration, which we're now experts on.
Yeah.
And then describe the characteristics of the Riesling grape.
Excuse me.
Okay, hold on a second. Molly, like if those 3 main techniques, if we just said, fining, filtration, and sedimentation, do we need to explain what those are? Yeah.
Not unless it says explain.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could also use racking.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I bet you their question would say explain. I bet you.
Yeah.
they would.
Probably.
Because
Right.
it just says
Jerks.
what are, which to me means
I am
explain.
fully overthinking how they ask these questions now. So
Yeah.
Right. Well, so did anyone else answer group B? I think Tanya, you did, right?
yeah.
Do you want to lead the charge? And I've actually got the answers from the Vino Venue stuff. So we can all talk about this. Let's describe 3 critical steps a winemaker could take in creating an aromatic white wine.
First one I did was cold fermentation
Yes.
to encourage the development of fruit flavors.
Nice. A cooler fermentation. I like that. Yeah.
Stainless steel vessel. So, you'd want to use that to keep your fruit flavors, not using oak because you don't want it to overpower your
Yes.
aromatic white wine. And then what we were just talking about was like no oxygen, keeping
Yeah.
the oxygen out as much to keep the fruit flavors. Those are my 3.
That's awesome. I think you probably would have gotten a 5 or 6 on that, according to the answers they provided, right? Which to me seem more like what you don't do. So they said cool fermentation, so nailed that one. Inert vessels, right? So anaerobic environment, right? Which is what you also said, no oxygen. They said higher SO2. We talked about SO2, just making sure to protect, make sure it doesn't go through malolactic fermentation.
Okay. Yeah.
They said it says skin contact increases flavor and aroma intensity. A little bit of skin contact. I wouldn't put that.
Huh.
Absolutely.
I guess for aromatic, you may want that skin contact.
Yeah, just a little bit, not too much though, because you can get bitter phenolics. So you have to be careful.
Just a smidge.
Just a smidge.
A smidgen. And then the last one they said was to clean the juice or clarify before fermentation. So it's kind of funny. It's like almost what you wouldn't do, right? or you want
Yeah.
to try to prevent to create an aromatic wine.
Well, it does create a wider range of flavors, so maybe that's why. Maybe it creates too many funky flavors.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I think Tanya would have gotten a lot of points for that.
Oh yeah.
I think you nailed it. And then part 2 is, what are 2 impacts of aerobic winemaking and maturation?
Oxidation.
Beautiful.
So it'll age the wine.
If you want to
Right.
take it a step further, you would then say, what are those oxidative notes, right? So you could say, what are some of, what does oxidation lead to, like some of those flavors and aromas? And so then you say, your toffee, nuts, caramel, tertiary aromas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also said that my second one was that on the 2 impacts was it softens tannins in red wines.
Yes, that's exactly what their answer said. Tanya, you were sitting pretty for Group B.
Tanya, you got it. Go ahead and take off. Go to the beach.
No, well done. That was awesome. Are we missing? Let's see what else they said.
I also
Color
did
change is another
gives more
thing.
complexity to flavors, so changing primary flavors to tertiary, but that almost comes back up to the oxidation, I think.
That's a good
That
one.
would have been a good.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
There's a color change, right?
Oh, yeah.
With
Yeah.
aerobic winemaking, you might get like a tawniness, right?
It can,
And
yes.
Yeah.
that was it. I think you nailed it. Well done.
Okay. Cool.
All right. How do we feel about that? Is that better this week versus 2 weeks
It definitely
ago?
helps walking through this way
Yeah,
with all of us.
I think the more we do this, the better I will feel in April.
This is probably the most important part of these reviews, I would argue, right?
This is where I had the most trouble, is how to answer these.
Yeah. Well, any other questions before we move on to review about these?
I'm good.
And if you know anybody in the market that has any other more of these questions, tell them to send them our way, because it would be great. Because I only have 2 sets, and I think some of us have copies. So, whatever we can find we'll take all of them we can get, basically. Okay, great job, guys. Let's go to chapter 8. Okay, I don't remember where I was as far as questions go, but Harv, I might have been on you. What's one of the big differences between white winemaking and red winemaking? There are 2 big ones I like to highlight usually. It's the timing of something.
Temperature of when you want to ferment. There's
Yes. Well, yeah. So those are the 2. There's 2 things I always say. One of them, temperature, and temperature would be what, higher or lower than
higher for the red.
Higher for the red. Yeah, exactly. So 2 big differences are temperature, and then Danny, can you tell me another?
The timing of the pressing.
Beautiful. Yes. When to press, right? For 9%, 95% of white wines, we're going to press it right after crush, right? Because we don't need to extract as much from these skins, seeds, stems, all that stuff, right? So timing of the press is huge. One thing I kind of forgot, or I've had to remember, is that we can ferment in barrel for white wines, and we don't normally do that with red wines. I mean, I guess I forget that you don't really do that in red wines at all, because with cap management and all that, it just it's a mess, right?
Big mess.
Big old mess. Nasty.
Although some places do have some big oak open top fermenters, like
Coffee.
Evan had a bunch, and Mondavi has a bunch of them.
Heights used to have those big redwood fermenters.
Yeah.
They're reds.
Oh, that's cool.
But they're big. It's not barrique. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, they're huge.
And they're open top.
They look
Yeah.
like big. They're the size of stainless steel, I guess, but they're okay.
They're
It's
massive.
made out of wood.
That's cool. All right, so we're going to go into the nitty gritty of this, but I think we all kind of, we've all been out to wine country a bit, but let's talk some options, okay? All right, we've got skin contact. We kind of went through a lot of this just with those questions. You've got the clarity of the juice. Why might I clarify before fermentation, Eric Schmidt? Why might I do it before we ferment? This is something I didn't really know until reading, or I'd forgotten for white wines.
Oh man, clarify before fermentation.
To me, when we get to the nitty gritty, this is what I had to, relearn, remember. Does anyone know why you would clarify?
I thought Molly was saying earlier to maybe that was more fining, but to remove any proteins out of the wine that could cause off flavors. And
Yeah, that was part of that little short
Molly.
answer that we did. So according to the book answer is even the pressed grape juice still has some stuff in it, right? It has some little bits of skin and pulp in white wines, and you're trying to remove all of that. So you often clarify the juice before fermenting it right after you press.
Mainly for whites, you said, Connor?
Correct.
Okay, that's
You
why I
do
was
this for
confused.
reds a lot too, Molly, or?
Well, reds don't get pressed.
Oh, yep, sorry. Yeah, so this is just a white red.
Okay.
So it says it prevents unpleasant aromas,
Yeah, but sometimes
and
people
then it,
leave in that stuff to give more range of flavors, but then
right.
producers that necessarily aren't worried about super clean, squeaky, fruity
Right.
flavors. So
Right.
squeaky clean, whatever.
So we'll go on to fermentation tip in general. We are, as Harv said, we're a little bit cooler, right? With white wine making. I don't know I was about to say, I don't know the exact Celsius, but it's between 12 and 22. I'll spitball it here.
54 to 72 is Fahrenheit.
Oh, nice. Okay. A point to Tanya.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about if we're making, because they spend some time in the book about making high volume cheapies for white wines, right? So, and they mention a style of grape. They say neutral grapes often for the high volume cheapies. And they oftentimes come from warm climates. So what type of must adjustment, what might I want to make from a warm climate, high volume cheapie? If it comes from a really hot climate like Central Valley, what might you need to do to it? We were talking about from last
Oh,
chapter.
deacidification.
Yeah, or opposite, right? Acidify it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So you might need to add a little acid to that bad boy to your Woodbridge Chardonnay or whatever.
Say it's not so.
No.
Delicious.
And then we talked about how when we're talking about these high volume cheapies, Sauvignon Blanc is also popular in the high volume cheapie sect, but it's a little more expensive, and it does not. Once we get into the grapes, you'll see it does not like the warm environment. So you gotta either adjust that must, or you're growing it in more expensive areas. Okay, but let's talk about premium wines, or preemies, as we say on the streets. When we're producing preemies, we want to follow more stringent rules, right, of making just really quality wine. So, so the focus of the winemaker is quality. And WSET loves that word quality and style. Those are the two words they talk, they want to get to the bottom of it. Why is it quality wine? Why did the winemaker do this to get X style? So let's talk about, in that, we're talking about premium when we talk about these next few grapes. So let's talk about Sauvignon Blanc. I always like to pay attention to these little, WSET is pretty handy. These are level 2 slides, but they pretty applicable, and it shows you that they love cool and moderate climates here. It's a high acid guy. It's aromatic, herbaceous floral, and get a lot of citrus. Let's talk about usually dry, sometimes unoaked. Let me get back into my questions here. I think I'm on Fergie. Can you name me a couple regions we make Sauvignon Blanc with oak? I know you can. Give me two.
Puy-Fumé,
Okay.
and then I'm trying to think of Pessac-Léognan.
Yeah, beautiful. And then I was also going to ask Birch, where do we often blend Sauvignon Blanc with Semillon?
Bordeaux.
Yep. And the other one, there's a place in Australia that I read in the book. Ooh, I know Molly knows it. But this one I would not have guessed. But
We're blending, you're saying it's Sauvignon Blanc with Semillon in
yeah.
Australia? Maybe
Margaret River.
Oh, Birch and Tanya both said it at the same time.
That was a
Siblings.
frickin' Hail Mary.
Siblings.
Name an Australian region is what I don't know what I would say. Well done. But I like to create different buckets of information in my head. So I like to think, Margaret River, they're going for the Bordeaux. Could you say that, Molly? They're going for the Bordeaux Blanc
And it's the
style?
more Bordelaise climate for sure.
And when I think Sauvignon Blanc and oak, I think you can also say Fumé Blanc, right? Now, Puy Fumé, do they usually oak everything in Puy Fumé, or is it?
That smokiness is usually coming from the silex, the soils. It's a flintiness as opposed to really oak. You do have producers using oak, but those are usually more their top end wines that aren't always exported.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
But great answer. I thought I was going to try to stump y'all, but I couldn't. All right. So typically for early drinking, right, we don't usually put Sauvignon Blanc in the cellar. Okay. Let's talk about least ripe, cooler climates. You're going to get more of the grassy, peppery minerality into orchard fruits than into tropical fruits. What's the ripest area for Sauvignon Blanc, Molly?
Ripest area for like good high quality.
Mm-hmm. Would it be California?
California gets pretty ripe. I would say South America in some parts as well. But and also Australia. I mean, there's some places to grow it. It's just too hot.
Right.
But yeah.
I like to think so. I guess you could say would you say New Zealand up here on the left?
Yeah, New Zealand, and also I throw like a canned jalapeno pepper in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm mad there's no grapefruit in here. What the heck?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you need the grapefruit.
Of course, I got this gooseberries here, which only the damn Brits have ever tried. I've had one though, and it tastes.
Are those gooseberries?
Yeah, I think they're gooseberries.
I thought those were Thompson seedless.
Can you have a cat? Can you put a cat urinating in there?
Shouldn't we?
Or
My cat make a little
boxwood bush.
Yeah, that would be good.
Nice boxwood.
All right. Any questions on Sauvignon Blanc? Okay, Riesling. I mean, this is a lot of review for us, but high acid. Let's see. I already asked you guys chaptalization versus Seuss Reserve. Okay. I'm just seeing if I have any other questions for you guys. Get a lot of harvest options. Honey and petrol would be, what would those be? Tertiary aromas, right?
Correct.
Bottle age. What is
Molly,
the thing
quick, I've got one quick question. The
Sure.
petrol comes from what process?
It's from the
It
grape.
comes from TDN, which is a compound in the wine that is a precursor for the petrol. So a lot of winemakers think it's a fault. So it's the presence.
And how does it get there? What do they do to the fruit to get that petrol component?
It's just it happens during fermentation. So
Are they doing anything during
add
fermentation to create that?
Yeah, I'd have to look that up. But if there is a presence of TDN, then you will have petrol.
I thought it was one of the things that came from the grape. I
Yeah,
heard that.
Yeah, I have to look that up a little bit more to.
I
fully-
love it in Riesling, but I couldn't remember how it got there or what
But
caused.
I've also smelled it in younger Rieslings, not always mature Rieslings.
We're gonna ask that
yeah,
question.
but that's not petrol though. You shouldn't call it petrol if it's a young wine.
Okay.
The examiner's gonna think you're goofy. I'm gonna just grab my book over there to wine science and I'll look.
And
I
you're
mean, we
smelling
have-
gasoline.
Michael, remember the Vouvray we've got that's got the petrol and the demi-sec. I can't. I think it's Moncontour demi.
Chateau
Uh-huh.
Vouvray, and it's got that
Moncontour.
petrol in the back end.
Hmm.
Just wondering how they get
I
that.
love that bottle.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Well, you know,
So we got Molly on the case here. We'll figure that out.
Okay.
Real quick,
He's on
I
the
can't remember
TDM.
where I am. I think I'm on maybe Danny. What is it about Riesling that helps it last a long time in a cellar?
Uh-oh.
What characteristic?
The acidity.
Yes, nailed it. Acidity, right? Acidity will help things last forever in a cellar. We got just ripe, so cooler climate Riesling with a lot of orchard fruits, right? Citrus, going into stone fruits, going into over here. If we're talking tropical or dried fruits, we're talking like Clare Valley, Eden Valley, right? Australian, warmer climates, right? They didn't put a lime in here. They should put a lime in there too. Okay. We usually do not use mallow. They mentioned. Any questions on Riesling?
Nope.
Chardonnay. Pay attention over here. It's cool, moderate, or warm. It works everywhere, right? It's also a blank canvas, right? You can do a lot of things with Chardonnay, and winemakers love it. I've got it's also early budding, so frost can be a problem. Eric, where might frost? Give me a region where frost is a problem for Chardonnay specifically.
Burgundy.
Yeah, Burgundy, Chablis, right? Is often problematic for Chardonnay.
Campaign.
Tanya, where in New Zealand? What's a good region in New Zealand for Chardonnay? Give you the
Good
toughie.
question.
I
Starts with a
can't
G.
think all of a sudden. It was on the tip of my tongue. Until
Yeah, well,
you
it's
said
not
my
one
name.
we ever encounter, you know.
Right.
Otaka.
We used to have one from Chardonnay,
Mhm.
from
We
New
did.
Zealand.
Berkey's got is saying me.
Well, it's Gisborne.
Gisborne, yeah.
Gives, yeah.
I figured that was Merlot and Cab. I didn't know that was for Chardonnay.
Now that is you're thinking Gimlet
Gimlet's
Gravels,
Gravel.
right?
That's right. That's right.
Giblets.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
giblets,
Old Giblets.
Giblets.
giblets and gravy.
Okay, so Chardonnay, super versatile, right? That's why it grows everywhere in the world. I was saying it's a blank canvas, right? So you can paint it with malolactic fermentation, with oak, with lees, lots of stuff you can do with it, right? Let's go least ripe orchard fruits, moderate. You got the kind of stone fruits, and you get all that tropical stuff, that tropical mess over in Australia. All right, Pinot Grigio, Pinot Gris, same variety as we all know. Look at all these descriptors here when they do aromas and flavors, just medium to high acidity. There's no aromas and flavors description. I think that's a big slam on Pinot Gris. Pinot Gris.
I think it is.
There's just a blank slide kind of. But I guess it's better to do it here. And I love talking about these two when I'm talking to Wine 101 crew, because you can really illustrate what winemakers can do, right? In a way, and then climate too. Because when am I harvesting Pinot Grigio in Italy, northeastern Italy, right? A lot earlier than in Pinot Gris. And that's a choice they have to make, right? So if you're going for this style, high acid, light bodied, you want something refreshing on the heel of the boot, not the heel of the boot, on the boot. It's hot in Italy. This is the style you're going for, right?
But it's cooler in that northeastern part of Italy.
So there's also climate too.
And then in Alsace, you've got the long growing season, the Vosges Mountains on one side and the Rhine on the other.
Right. So longer. So when are they harvesting? Probably September or something? Like A little bit later, Molly,
I'm sorry, for
Pinot Gris and
Alsace?
Alsace are
Oh,
harvesting.
yes.
Yeah, a lot later, right?
And the presence of the Vosges Mountains, they're keeping it dry and warm late into the autumn, means they can harvest fairly late.
Yeah, and so you've got more, it's a good illustration of how the fruit profile changes when you're on the vine a little bit longer. You get more of those riper into tropical fruits, right? And the body changes too, it's higher alcohol. Okay. Oh, one other thing I like to point out too sometimes is that when you see Chateau Saint Michel Pinot Gris in a supermarket, that's the style, or the fact that Oregon makes Pinot, they call it Pinot Gris versus Pinot Grigio, can show you that that's the style they're going for, right?
Can.
I meant to say Willa Kinsey Pinot Gris. I apologize. I misspoke. Sorry, Molly.
They don't make that anymore.
Oh yeah. All right. Any questions on those? Kind of just recap on grapes.
So I didn't find anything super enlightening about the TDN, but it is present in the grapes, and you can do some things in the vineyard to either increase or decrease it, and things like botrytis can affect the level of TDN that's in Riesling. So,
Okay.
yeah,
TDN.
not super enlightening. Sorry.
Molly,
There
do
were
you
many pages of
smell-
reference.
So in a young Riesling, when you smell that, what I called petrol, but it's not petrol, which would be the
I
tertiary.
would just not say petrol. You
What would you say?
thinking petrol? I
Nothing.
say mineral, stony. I would say something.
Okay.
Else, but know that word petrol is associated with a tertiary aroma.
Okay.
Good.
Talk about it with a young wine. The examiner's going to say this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah. All right.
So just eradicate it from your vocabulary unless you're talking about an aged wine.
Or unless there's a gasoline nearby.
Yeah.
Yes, and that gasoline-like aroma only happens in older wines, and young wine doesn't really smell like you're standing at the gas pump.
Yeah.
Flinty, I would just find another way to describe it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's touch on some sweet wines, right? Concentration of grape sugars to make a sweet wine. So in the earlier stages, riper aromas, higher sugar levels versus later stages, which are raisining and dried fruit aromas. So what am I talking about here? What am I talking about here? Late harvest, right? Would be what I'm talking about. Letting grapes hang on the vine much longer than they normally would. So they are even riper, and later on, even raisin, right? So we were talking about that. Sorry, I just pulled these slides from level 2.
Yeah, so it would be like full-on botrytis or just sort of a later harvest, because you can have late harvest with little to no botrytis, and the botrytis isn't necessarily a function of how late you harvest. It really is just a function of that bacteria being present. Not bacteria, but that fungus being present. But yeah. But if you think of Tokai, a late harvest wine from Tokai might not necessarily have heavy indications of botrytis, but it will be ripe and sweet. But a botrytis one will be even sweeter with full raisining.
Perfect. So botrytis optional for late harvest. Now, when we go into botrytis, now we got that mold everywhere. We got that mold.
That's what we call the mother fungus.
The mother. Damp, misty mornings and warm, dry afternoons. What is it called when it goes wrong? Do you remember?
Gray rot.
Yeah.
Gray mold.
Nice.
Gray rot. Okay, I think we all know a good bit about botrytis. I'm gonna zip past that, right? I mean, maybe name a region, a couple regions that botrytis runs rampant through. Eric, you said Sauterne. Yeah.
Germany. The Mosel.
Loire Valley, right? Like on the banks, river banks.
South Africa.
Where in South Africa? Forget.
Stellenbosch.
Ah, beautiful.
Little Ken Forster Noble Tea.
Yeah.
Boom.
What about Rutherglen
Nice.
Muscats? Are those? Or that's just no.
I
Those
thought
are
you'd
just,
never mention that.
That's different.
That's different. Sorry. We'll get back to that. That's more, those are stickies, huh?
Mhm.
Fortifieds. We'll get to
Ice
those
wine.
later. And then of course we got freezing on the vine, right? Ice vine, nice wine. It's kind of like the ice house beers, right? Or those beers in the late 80s where they froze some of the water out of the beer to make it more concentrated, right? You're kind of doing that with ice wine.
But the difference is those are higher alcohol where these are not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Ice House was known to be higher alcohol.
Yeah, that's why they froze to concentrate.
That was delicious.
Bring it
There's
back,
molten
baby.
ice.
Very nice.
4 or 5 of those before a Falcons game, you were good to
Ooh,
go.
Don't forget Reuniti on ice. Now that's nice.
very
Right.
nice.
I'm giving Eric a point for that one. No, that's nice. All right, we're all familiar with this, right? It's all about concentrating sugar content. It doesn't go over Pasito, but I think we're gonna cover that in Italy and other dessert wines. So let's go into a red wine. We already talked about the big differences here. The temperature is what?
Warmer.
Warmer, and we're pressing after, right?
Excuse me.
All right, what's this tall drink of water doing over here? If you guys see my mouse,
Punch down.
he's punching that cap down, right? Whereas this bloke is doing what?
Rack and return.
He's
Pump
pumping over,
Pump
right?
over. Sorry. Pump
Yeah.
over.
Pump over, yeah. Now he could put this in a different stainless steel, and that would be rack and return, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is stuff that I needed review with. A cold soak. I'm going to ask, or who wants to volunteer? When would a cold soak happen? Where would it fit on this image? Like where on this image would it fit on the slide? Would it happen?
In fermentation.
Probably, yeah, before fermentation.
Yeah.
Won't it
Bert
slow
gets it
down?
right.
It slows down fermentation because of the colder temperature.
No, they're extracting color like Pinot Noir would co-soak, and they would extract a lot of color from the Pinot Noir before they ferment.
Yeah. Birch just
But then
nailed
you
it.
have to do punch downs to break
So
it.
it would go right behind this tall drink of water right here. That's where the cold stuff would be, right? And the book example is Pinot Noir, right? When if you have something that's a less ripe grape, you're going to try to get as much flavor and aroma out of there. So you would cold soak, right? Anything to add to that, Molly?
For which? Cold soak?
Yeah. I'm just saying we do it before, and the book example is Pinot Noir to extract as much, and then you would start the fermentation. Would the Pinot Noir fermentation be higher or lower temperature compared to other reds? Anybody want to say?
Lower.
Actually, I think the book is all about it being higher because you're trying
Right,
to
but-
extract more.
I misunderstood your question then.
I'm bad at phrasing questions. I'm learning. But yeah, with Pinot, and that was actually surprised me too. I thought they would want a more delicate, extraction or something. But Pinot, depending on the climate, you might need to ferment at higher temperature versus like a Cab or Shiraz or something, which might be lower.
Shiraz.
Shiraz.
Yeah, it would depend. People are careful with Pinot because you don't want to over extract too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, it almost felt like a generalization to say all Pinot for cold soaking, but you do tend to use cold soaking up a lot on Pinot. Could you say that?
Yeah, I would say most of them tend to go through some period of cold soak prior to the alcoholic fermentation for flavor and color.
But not necessarily tannin. Not getting as much tannin out of it.
Tannin you don't get until you start having alcohol. So alcohol extracts tannin.
Okay, perfect.
Oh.
So then the tannin comes out once we're fermenting. Cap management techniques will give you, the punch down will give you more extraction than a pump over, right? It's a more abrasive way of tackling that cap versus a gentle pump over, right? Okay. Let's go into, we've already covered this basically. I don't know that this was great that we already kind of did it. Carbonic versus semi-carbonic versus whole bunches with crushed fruit. which they mentioned in the book. This is a Pinot Noir that's really popular with Pinot Noir to just throw some whole clusters in there as well to
And then
add
put
some
the crushed fruit
freshness.
on top.
Yep. Do we need to cover anything else on this? I feel like is it intracellular or intercellular? I've been saying inter. I think it's intracellular.
Intra.
Ugh. Egg on my face. Intracellular fermentation.
Oh my God, it's over.
When it hits eject, Virginia hits eject.
Sure,
I
I'm
just
right.
flying out of the sea. All right, blending. There was a blending slide, so I threw it in here. I don't know that we need to. Oh, here we go. Let's talk about this. So they give another example. If I'm trying to make cheap red wine, the little cheapies, what might I do? I want a fruity, low tannin style of wine, everyday drinking. What are some things I could do?
Add water. Just kidding.
For both the red and whites, they said use lots of SO2 to protect that fruit, the primary fruit, right? And just like the first one, it said with the whites, it said if it's a warm climate, you might need to acidify. Okay. The other things, you don't work the cap as much, and then no post-fermentation maceration because you don't want those extra tannins. What do they call? What's another word for post-fermentation maceration? Is that just what it's called, Molly? That's a Molly question. Sorry.
No, that's what it's called.
Okay, post-fermentation maceration.
I know. I was
Which-
like, I don't remember calling it anything else.
Yeah.
Or
okay,
extraction.
Yes,
Yes.
it gives you more tannin.
Yeah.
And I believe they mentioned it being that some winemakers think it'll be like finer, smoother tannins, right? So they do it with kind of bigger, bolder grapes sometimes, right?
Is that élevage?
Nope. Élevage is maturation. So this is still winemaking. Post fermentation is still. I know it says post fermentation soak, post alcoholic fermentation soak or maturation, but it is still during winemaking because you haven't pressed yet.
Okay. What is
You're not actively fermenting
Maceration,
anymore.
not maturation. I get it.
Maceration, yes, not maturation.
cool? All right. That was just a worthless blending slide. Let's go through Cabernet. Moderate and warm. It likes moderate and warm climates. It works well in the New World because of that. Thick skin, high acidity, high tannin black fruits. Someone tell me why can these age really well in the cellar? But like our buddy Riesling, it's got what? It's got good acid,
High
right?
acid.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's a high T
Tannin.
zone. High T zone. And then you got all these delicious black fruits. Let's get into like bad years in Bordeaux, you get these green peppery things, right? To really riper climates, you get these currants. What was that, black cherry or something?
Mm-hmm.
Or I know blackberry. I'm going to call WSET after today. Let's talk about these fruits. Merlot, also moderate to warm. We're going to cover these a little bit more next time, with Bordeaux and such, I
And in
think.
France.
But look at that, medium acidity, medium tannin. And I also like to point out the fruit profile. Look how different it is to Cabernet. I mean, they're sometimes similar. They have black fruits, but they also have some red fruits
Red,
as well.
blue.
And that's why they're great blending buddies. They're PB and J, right? So Merlot, you're oftentimes adding it to Cab to lower that tannin, make it more approachable, right? Make it ready to drink at an earlier age. And you're adding the red fruit, because the black fruit can be kind of one note. Or sorry, the Cabernet can be kind of, linear black fruits at times. Whereas Cab, you're sometimes beefing up a Merlot, right? Freemark Abbey Cab has something like 20% Merlot or something, right? Right around that, that happens all the time. Blend buddies. Okay, any questions on that? We all got that. Pinot Noir, thin skin, high acid boy, red fruits galore. And you get a bunch of tertiary in the bottle. And we covered all. Oh, someone named a good region in Germany for Pinot Noir. The book mentions.
Oh,
Hey guys, I'm sorry, I forgot. I've got a staff training at 10.
Oh, okay. Hey, Danny, I'm gonna give you a call later. I got a question for you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Just warning you. All right, see you, man.
See ya.
Is it Baden?
Baden, yes.
God, I couldn't remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I did either.
Say it twice. Baden, Baden.
Baden, Baden,
Baden Baden.
Baden,
Do you
Baden.
remember specifically one area?
Oh, Molly.
Ha.
Seriously.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Kaiserstuhl.
Oh, Kaiser.
It's an extinct volcano.
Jeez. Where's
Which also
Westbrook?
seems weird for Germany, but
You sure it's not Kaiser Soze?
be a good way to remember it though.
Yes.
Kaiser salsa at Moe's, and they call it Kaiser salsa. All right, so Syrah and Shiraz.
Kaiser
Let's get
salsa.
into that. Yeah, they did. So thick skin, medium to high T, medium to high A, single or blended. And then you get these tertiary leather, meat, earth. Black pepper is the big thing to see. Peppercorn right there. Where do we get more of that from? What region? If we were to
Northern
name
Rhone.
one?
Yeah,
Northern
northern.
Rhone, right? Where you get this, what is that, licorice or something?
Licorice.
God, I hope that's what that is.
Looks like a dog walked through the park. It's disgusting. All right, let's talk about, speaking of PB&J, let's talk about Syrah. It's kind of like Syrah Merlot, right? There's all these black fruits. It's medium to high tannin, medium to high acidity. Look at Grenache. Lots of red fruits, right? It's a low T zone. That's what my wife says about me. Thin skin, low acid, a lot of red fruits. It's really good for rosé for that reason, right? Because of the low T. So PB&J, that's why, where do we blend Grenache and Syrah together a lot?
Southern France.
Southern
Yeah.
France, right?
The Rhone.
Australia.
The Rhone,
Yeah.
Australia. And then Garnacha blends really well with Tempranillo, and Tempranillo has a similar, somewhat similar profile to, it's got some black fruits that the Grenache does not, right?
Mhm.
Rosé. Oh, I got a question for somebody. Who can tell me the difference between direct press and what's a direct press when we're talking about rosé wine? Direct pressing versus a short maceration.
Oh, excuse me.
So direct press, I'm trying to think, I think one of our Gerard Bertrand with that Gris Blanc might do this, but a direct press is literally just making like white wine, correct me if I'm wrong, Molly, where you just press it, but some of that color still just comes through because it's red grapes.
Correct. And those are usually the palest ones because they would get the shortest amount of time with the skin.
Yeah. The
And
least.
a lot of producers will actually allow them to have a little bit of skin contact in the press.
Okay, to give them a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like
Which
those
could be
pink
your
Pinot,
short maceration.
like those pink Pinot Grigios.
Yeah,
The most delicate.
exactly.
And then
And the most important thing with direct to press is the fact that the grapes are grown specifically to be made into rosé. It's not a byproduct of a red wine fermentation.
Huh. Okay.
Whereas a short maceration would be usually the byproduct, saignée, of a red wine fermentation.
So and then we're using the grapes that we're using direct press. I mean, it's usually like Grenache and stuff in southern France. Are they really ripe and really a lot of color, and that's why they can still come through in the direct press, or is it not?
Well, they would pick them. Usually, they're picked a little earlier if they're doing direct press, because then they're picking at a different time for a rosé.
Okay.
And to be fresher, more delicate, more fragrant. But if it is a red wine byproduct, they tend to be a little bit heavier, and then your pick time there is for a red wine, not for a rosé.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, like you would pick a white generally earlier to preserve acid and freshness. You would do the same with the red grapes if they're intended to be made into rosé.
Cool.
In general.
Interesting that you mentioned that the grapes grown for direct press are often just grown specifically that way
Yes.
because they know that's what they're intended for.
Exactly. That's what our winemakers do. It's mostly they use a little saignée juice just to beat it up sometimes, but the direct press generally gives you your more fragrant, delicate, crisp rosés.
Very cool. Okay, great. Those are the main two things I think we need to know. Short maceration, direct press. You can blend. it's not, it's kind of looked down upon. Oh, here's chapter 10 in one slide. What was that?
I love it. Great analogy.
I took this out of my wine 101 class. What makes a $100 bottle different than a $5 bottle? Anyone want to start naming some things?
Tree in the wine group.
Handpicked. Okay.
Growing
Yeah,
area.
right. The price of grapes. Napa Cab is,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of them is average $8,000.
Low die.
New French oak, I just made up that figure. It's probably more than that now.
A little more, yeah.
Versus
About
a Central Valley.
1,500.
Oh, God, what'd you say, Molly?
About 1,500 for New
Okay.
French oak.
Back in my day, it was 1,200. Central Valley Cab, $600 a ton. That's the difference there, right?
Ship it.
Ship it, baby. We got machine harvesting and market demand, right? See, I couldn't even do this with Jackson Family because you guys don't have a little cheapie.
Not that cheap, yeah, no.
No,
We had to go
got rid of
treasury.
all that stuff.
Other things that affect costs, I don't need to go over with you guys because you know it. Land, an acre in Napa costs more than an acre somewhere else. Equipment, exchange rates, if it has to go across the pond, et cetera, et cetera. And then we know this is chapter 11, is basically GIs versus outside of the EU, where what's the difference between old world and new world, basically, right? New world, it's just a region, came from there. Whereas in the EU, they'll have a lot more, well, they have 2 levels often, and then they'll also have, okay, well, might have grape restrictions, irrigation restrictions, et cetera, et cetera. Do we all remember the PGI versus PDO?
Mhm.
Like, I always think IGT for Italy versus DOC or DOCG, or Venda Pay versus, you know, AOC.
AOC, yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera. So we'll cover all of these, though, I feel like, once we get into chapter 11 is just a bull honky chapter, I think, because we'll cover it all.
Sure, we will.
So one thing I wanted to ask you guys, so I'm doing these lab courses, they're sessions basically, and they're Zoom tasting sessions. And so one of them I thought would be, and this is also especially geared towards Danny, would be doing like, let me back up. So the lab sessions we call them like 24 slots that anyone can join. They're not mandatory. We'd open it up to both on premises of Savannah and Smyrna and IR retail for both, and say anyone can join. We'll make little tasting kits for you. They'll be blind 4-packs, right? And for this one, I want to do this game we created called Beat the Som, where we're either trying to, and we'll pick one of you guys, if you guys want to do it, this is totally optional. But I was thinking we could do Beat Birch or Beat Danny or Beat Fergie or any of y'all. And
Yeah,
we
it
would
could be fun.
try to, would you guys be into that?
Sure.
What time and when would you do this?
It would be probably evening, I think. But we could, I like the idea of it being a happy hour, but we could do it any time. But where it's accessible to reps, they could join. We could go through, and then Molly, of course, if you could ever join one of these, that would be, we'd have to figure out. But that
It
would
could
be
beat
fantastic.
Molly.
Yeah, can you beat Molly? We would
Good
walk
luck.
Not hard.
We would walk through the WSET grid a bit. And then I've got an actual way, like a virtual scoreboard thing I can do through Somify stuff. So you would basically guess grape country, New World, Old World, and you get points, and there's a leaderboard and stuff.
That could be fun if we get enough advance notice.
Yeah, so we could do
A
this
lot
like,
of evening dates already booked out.
yeah, like if we could do maybe like early to mid-March or something.
Yeah,
We would make kits for everyone. Molly, we would love to have you if we could.
Sure.
We could coordinate getting the wines to you. You know, like you might just have to ship the full bottles, probably, and then
Yes.
put them in blind bags or something.
All right, yeah, or I could pull them here.
Or you could just use Jackson wines.
Yeah.
We would,
Yeah.
we would definitely use Jackson wines, but someone else would have to pull them for you, though, so you know you're blind.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. There's that.
Unless we just say beat Birch or beat Fergie or beat Danny, because Danny was doing the tasting portion of this.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of the labs is to kind of coincide with whatever course we're teaching, but invite the rest of the company to join. And I'm trying to make it cool where people would want to come and not be mandated. I don't know if it'll
Right.
happen, but that's the goal.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's cool.
Under consideration.
All right, well, I'll start scheming on that. That's the main thing I wanted to ask Danny too, so I'm gonna call him later because he could help. We can get Diane to coordinate it in Savannah for anybody who wants to join. All right, cool. Any questions about anything from today?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad you're recording this. It really makes it easy to go back and look at YouTube and refresh, especially as we get closer to April.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
I'll
a
post
lot of
this.
these things, like the filter piece that Molly covered and some of the other stuff, definitely cleared it up for me.
So where do we find him on YouTube, Connor?
So the big email, I send out,
Yeah.
it has a link in it.
Okay, great.
But what we can also do, I made up a YouTube, like a UDI product knowledge, it's called. I don't even know how to link, but I could send that out or make a group of once
Yeah,
we're
do it.
done. And then what I do with some of the, CSS, CSW stuff, you just play it as you drive around town. Once it gets closer to,
Yeah, absolutely.
you don't need to necessarily see the screen.
Sure. Perfect.
All right, guys. Well, next time is France. I hope we'll get through it. I don't know if we will.
We will.
Molly, thank
Yeah,
you again.
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Molly.
Molly.
Fantastic.
It's good to see you.
And I'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
You will?
Appreciate it.
All right, adios.
Tanya.
All right.
Yeah.